Hey guys, so I was not here today. You're going to be watching this video and copying everything down as I tell you and where I tell you. So it'll be just like our class, it's just you are watching me on the computer. So let's get started. If you didn't already come into class and grab your binder, please go grab your binder from the bookshelf. And we're going to open up to our warm-up page. So anytime we need to pause the video because you need to catch up on writing, please do so. Let's start now. We got 4 questions. I wanted to review adding fractions and decimals before we jump into today's lesson. I would like you to pause the video and attempt the problems first, then unpause to check your answers. So please pause it now and try it. Good. Let's see how things went. When you add and subtract fractions, that's our first 3 questions, dealing with fractions, you first have to make sure you have a common denominator. So the denominator is the bottom part of your fraction. So in question 1, we have 9/10 plus 4/5. The denominators are different. One is a 10, one is a 5. So we have to find the first number they have in common. And, well, the first number they have in common is 10, which means all I have to do is change the second fraction first. To get a common denominator, or I guess to get to 10, I'm going to multiply 5 by 2. But whatever I do to the bottom of my fraction, I have to do it to the top. I like to rewrite my questions below. So I'm going to rewrite 9/10 because that didn't change. And I'm going to rewrite plus because it didn't change. And I'm going to multiply. 4 times 2 is 8, and 5 times 2 is 10. Now that they're a common denominator, the denominator, so bottom of your fraction, stays the same. It stays 10, and 9 plus 8 is 17. If you make any mistakes on the warm-up, please just correct it. My next step, question 2 and 3. What you'll notice is that these are mixed numbers. Now, no matter what, when you're dealing with mixed numbers, you still need to have a common denominator. Now, I find it easier to convert my mixed numbers into improper fractions first. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to convert each of my mixed numbers into a improper. I'm going to multiply the whole number and the denominator and add the top. And I'm going to do that to both fractions. So to save myself a little bit of time, what I end up getting is my first fraction becomes 19 over 4 plus 13 over 8. Now I can get a common denominator. Now the common denominator between 4 and 8 is 8. So I have to multiply the first fraction by 2 to get to 8. I wrote a little too big, so I'm going to have to write it off to the side. But 19 times 2 is 38 over 8 plus 13 plus 8. Keep the denominator the same, and we do 38 plus 13, and that's 51. Now, I'm fine if you keep your answer as an improper fraction, or you can convert it to a mixed number, so or. To convert it to a mixed number, it becomes a long division problem, where I'm going to figure out how many times 8 can go into 51. And it can get us close to 51 without going over 6 times, and that is 48. And I subtract. 51 minus 48. Well, old school stuff. I can't do 1 minus 8, so I have to borrow, which turns my 1 into an 11. And so it's really 11 minus 8, which is 3. Now from here, I don't have to continue. I can write it as a decimal. Right now, it's okay to keep it as a fraction. But we have been practicing some decimal work, so I actually might as well continue. I'll show you 2 things. From here, if you make it a mixed number, you would stop. The whole number would be 6. The remainder, 3, would be the top of your fraction, and the denominator stays the same. Or we can actually continue this long division problem and add a decimal and a 0 inside my house and bring it down. 8 can go into 30 at most 3 times, which is 24. A little subtraction leaves me with 6. I can add another 0 and bring it down. 8 can go into 60 at most 7 times, which is 56. A little more subtraction leaves me with a 4. Add another 0, bring it down, and 8 can go into 40 5 times. So if I wanted it as a decimal, I'd have 6.375. I'm actually okay with any of those answers for now. Doing it again for number 3, I'm going to convert to improper fractions. So what I end up getting is 11 over 2 plus 8 over 3. The common denominator between 2 and 3 is actually 6 because it's the first number that both of them can go into. So I'd have to multiply my first fraction by 3, both top and bottom. And I have to multiply my second fraction by 2, both top and bottom. What does this give me? 33 over 6 plus 16 over 6. From here, I'm going to add 33 and 16, and I get 49 over 6. You could leave it like this. You could make it a mixed number, or you could write it as a decimal. For time today, I'm just going to actually pause here, and I'm just going to stop with my improper fraction. If you went all the way through and you got a decimal, just so you can see it, it would be 8.16 repeating, and it's only the 6 that's repeating. I'm going to keep going. I guess just in case you want to see the actual mixed number 2, it would be 8 and 1/6. That would also be your. Boop. Okay, last question. Decimal addition. When you are adding or subtracting decimals, you do have to line up your decimals. So what I'm going to do is start by writing 25.8 plus 56.04. So the decimals are lined up top to bottom. Now before I continue, I need to make sure I have all my numbers have a partner. So what I notice is on the right hand side of my problem, there's a missing empty space. I'm going to fill that in with 0. Now that every number top to bottom has a partner, I can just add like normal. Always bring your decimal straight down. 0 plus 4 is 4. 8 plus 0 is 8. 5 plus 6 is 11. So I put my 1 down, carry my 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 5 is 8. If you made any mistakes, no worries. That is it for your warm-up. Please get out a piece of paper for notes, fold it into 4s, and we're going to jump to our notes. For your notes, as always, fold into 4s, put your name at the top of it, and title. The title is Lesson 4, Adding Rational Numbers. You can also see I put box 1 already on our screen. So please pause the video and copy down your title and box 1. Unpause when you are ready to move on. I'm just going to read what you wrote. So in box 1, we just have some starred notes. The first starred note, and actually all 3 of them, these are just some reminders of how to work with some different types of numbers. When adding fractions, you must have a common denominator. That's also true for subtracting. If you have a mixed number, convert it to an improper fraction. And when adding or subtracting decimals, always line up the decimals. Let's do some actual problems. We're now going to be dealing with some negative numbers that are either fractions or decimals. Box 2, we're going to start out hopefully not too bad. Anything in yellow is a must write down, so if you need to pause the video to write this down, please do. Unpause when you're ready to go through it. But example 1, we have 2 plus 1.4 plus negative 1.4. What's going to make this a little challenging is that we have 3 numbers. Now, I'm going to just do this traditionally, and then I'll show you a trick. What do I mean by traditionally? Well, traditionally means I'm going to just do 2 numbers at once. So I'm just going to work with these 2 numbers. I'm going to group together, and then I'll deal with my last number. So I'm going to add 2 plus 1.4. Now, this is a decimal. And so when I'm dealing with decimals, I have to line up decimals. Well, you might have forgotten this, or you might remember, who knows? When I don't see a decimal in a number like I don't with 2, it's actually at the end. So it's really 2.0. So I'm going to do 2.0 plus 1.4. My decimals are lined up and I add like normal. 0 plus 4 is 4. I bring down my decimal. And 2 plus 1 is 3. Bring down what's left, which is the plus and the negative 1.4. Now I'm dealing with some negative numbers. Well, when I'm dealing with negatives, remember, if the signs are different, so one is positive, one is negative, you subtract. If the signs are the same, you add. Here, these are different. I have a positive 3.4 plus a negative 1.4. These are opposite signs, so I subtract. I also need to decide if it's positive or negative. Well, which number is bigger? 3.4 is bigger, which makes it positive. So I know I'm going to have a positive answer, and I'm just going to subtract like normal. 4 minus 4 is 0. My decimal stays lined up. 3 minus 1 is 2. So I actually get a 2.0, which is the same thing as just 2. Now I said I'd show you a trick. This is the traditional method. Here's a trick on B. Looking at the entire problem from left to right, I see opposites right here. Negative 1.2 and positive 1.2. Those are opposites. And if you remember, opposites always equal, I hope to hear you say in your head, 0. So this actually automatically cancels out to 0. So all I have left is negative 7 plus 0. And that is just negative 7. If you didn't trust that, you can go through the traditional method and you'll get the same exact answer. You might be wondering, why could I have just added the 2 numbers, the one in the middle and one at the end, instead of going left to right? And the reason I was able to do that is because adding has this property called the commutative property. And it means you can add numbers in whatever order you want and still get the same answer. Let's move on to box 3. Let's deal with some fractions and decimals. Here's box 3, example 2A and B. Please pause the video and copy those down. Okay, let's start to go through them. Now we have a mix now. We have some fractions and we have decimals. Starting with your fraction problem, part A. It says negative 3/10 plus 1 and 9/10. What I notice immediately is I have a mixed number. One of our starred notes in box 1 says convert mixed numbers to be improper fractions. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to convert 1 and 9/10 by multiplying my whole number in my denominator and adding my top, which is the numerator. I'm going to rewrite what I have, which is a -3/10 plus, and notice everything got written in the same order. I didn't switch around anything. The numbers, -3/10 was on the left. It's still on the left side of my page. Converting this mixed number, I end up getting 1 times 10 is 10. 10 plus 9 is 19 over 10. Well, because we're dealing with fractions, you also need to check, do you have a common denominator? And you do. It's 10. So now we can think back to our rules with negatives. If they are different signs, subtract. If they are the same signs, you add. Now my fractions are different. One is negative, one is positive. And according to our rules, we subtract. So I'm actually going to do just normal subtraction of 19 over 10 minus 3 over 10. Common denominator stays the same. 19 minus 3 is 16. So I'm starting off with 16 over 10. And this is going to stay positive because 19 is bigger than 3 and 19 is positive. It's not okay to leave my answer like this. What do you mean it's not okay, Mrs. Peterson? Well, it's a great question. It's because it's not simplified. You have to simplify your fraction. So 16 over 10. I have to simplify or reduce by finding a number they both have in common. So I'm thinking about all the factors of 16 and all the factors of 10. And I know that they are both even. So I know that they have 2 in common, and that's actually the biggest number they have in common. So to simplify, what I'm doing is actually dividing top and bottom of my fraction by 2. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I have this lovely improper fraction. It's completely fine to keep your answer as an improper fraction. I personally prefer improper fractions. But if you choose to make it a mixed number, you would have 1 3/5. I will accept mixed numbers. I just personally prefer improper. Let's try B. B is dealing with decimals. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out if I'm adding or subtracting. Well, I notice that these numbers are opposites. One is positive, 23.5, and one is negative, which is negative 33.5. Well, that means we subtract. So when I say subtract, I truly mean big number, 33.5, take away small number, 23.5. Subtracting with decimals, so my decimals just have to line up. And then I just do like normal. 5 minus 5 is 0. My decimal carries down. 3 minus 3 is 0. And 3 minus 2 is 1. So I get 10.0, but I have to decide, is this positive or if it's negative? Well, what number is bigger? 23.5 or 33.5? 33 is bigger, and 33 is negative, which makes our answer negative. So we have negative 10.0, but that's the same thing as just 10. So final answer is negative 10. In that same box, so box 3, I would like you to do C and D. Please copy them down, pause the video, see what you can do first, and then unpause the video to go through the answers. All right, let's see how you did. C is negative 1.2 plus negative 2.5. Well, I noticed that they are the same signs. What does that mean? They're both negative. So if they're both negative, that just means we add like normal. So I do 2.5 plus 1.2. 5 plus 2 is 7. Decimal carries down. 2 plus 1 is 3. Because both numbers are negative, your answer stays negative. So you have negative 3.7. D. We have fractions again. Make sure you have a common denominator, and that we do, so that's good. Decide, are you adding or are you subtracting? Well, these are both negative numbers. One is negative 7/5, one is negative 3/5. Those are the same signs, so you actually add them. I do 7/5 plus 3/5, which gives me 10/5. Because of the same sign, we do know our answer is going to stay negative. I'm just going to add that in now. So far, we have negative 10/5. You always have to simplify your fractions. And 10/5 can be simplified or reduced to actually a whole number. And I'll show you that in a moment. Let's just do normal simplifying. Let's find a number that we can divide from top and bottom. Well, looking at 10 and 5, I know that 5 is in common. So I can divide top and bottom by 5. I'm going to carry along my negative. So I have negative. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Well, anytime you have a fraction with a denominator, so the bottom, of a 1, that just makes this a whole number. So this is actually negative 2 as your final answer. You could have also jumped from the original fraction of 10 over 5 to negative 2 by just thinking about division. Thinking about 10, oops, I wrote 18. 10 divided by 5 is 2. That's another way you can think about it because fractions are division problems. We're going to do a couple more questions in box 4. I wanted to give you some where we have some fractions where the denominators are different. So here's box 4. Copy down what is in yellow because it's a must write down. Pause the video, and when you're done writing, unpause the video. And let's do this. So part A, we have 6 1/4 plus negative 3 1/2. Well, because you're dealing with mixed numbers, the first thing you have to do is convert the mixed numbers to be improper. So I'm going to do that first. I'll do 6 times 4 plus 1, which is 25/4. Bring down your plus sign. Bring down your parentheses. And you bring down your negative sign because that will not change. I'm going to convert my other number to be improper. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7 over 2. So this is really what we're working on. 25 over 4 plus negative 7/2. No matter what, we still have fractions. And to deal with fractions, you have to have a common denominator. So between 4 and 2, we need to get a common denominator, and that's 4. So I actually just have to change my second number. How do I do that? Well, to get to 4, I just multiply 2 by 2. So whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. I'm going to keep rewriting below here. I'm going to keep bringing down my 25/4 plus negative. 7 times 2 is 14. 2 times 2 is 4. Now that we have a common denominator, we can deal with our problem. There's a lot of prepping before we can even solve this problem. We have to make sure we get fractions that look similar enough to work with. What do I mean? Common denominator. Let's decide if we're adding or subtracting. Well, I see we have a positive fraction and a negative fraction. Those are different, and that means subtract. Because we have a common denominator, I can just subtract like normal. 25 over 4 minus 14 over 4. And that gives me 11 over 4. Well, is my answer positive or negative? Well, what number is actually bigger, 25 or 14? Well, 25 is bigger, so we have a positive 11/4. Again, I personally prefer you to keep your fractions as improper, so I would really like to keep it this way. But you can write it as a mixed number if you'd like. What you'd end up getting here, let's see, you'd end up having to do some long division. So improper fraction, you would have 2 3/4. Or if you went through long division, which I'm not going to, you would have 2.75. But I am perfectly fine with you keeping an improper fraction. Just have to make sure it was simplified. And 11 over 4 is simplified. I can't divide anything from top and bottom. Let's do this one, and this will be our last problem. You'd have negative 4.15 plus negative 3.87. Because you're dealing with decimals, that's nicer in my opinion, because you have to make sure your decimals are just lined up. You should notice that these are both negative numbers, negative, negative, and that they're the same sign, meaning they're saying negative. We just add. So I'm going to do 4.15 plus 3.87. Add straight down. 5 plus 7 is 12, so I put my 2 down, carry my 1. 8 plus 1 is 9, plus my extra 1 is 10. 0, carry my 1, but also bring down your decimal. Now I have 1 plus 4 plus 3. Well, 1 plus 4 is 5, 5 plus 3 is 8. So I'm going to have something that's 8.02, but is this something positive or negative? Because both numbers are negative, it stays negative. And that is your final problem. Okay, I wanted to jump for just a minute to our Schoology page, and I'm currently inside our homework folder because you have homework tonight. It is on Schoology, and it is Mod 2, Lesson 4 homework. This is similar, it's similar to Delta Math, except that you actually get to type in your answers. So let me show you what it's going to look like. When you click on the assignment, you would click Start New Attempt. Please note, I am asking that you actually show your work on a separate piece of paper. So please make sure you bring that piece of paper back to class on Monday. You have 2 attempts on this assignment, and I'm going to take the highest score. That's why it's important to write down your work, because after your first attempt, you can go back and look at your work on your piece of paper and see what mistakes you made. It is broken up to the first 5 questions are new from today, new material, and the last 4 is just previous learned stuff. So I'm going to click Start Attempt. When you are doing the problems, on my piece of paper, I'd write down the actual question, I would do the work on paper, and then I'm going to come and type in my answer. Now this says keep your answer as a fraction and then it has the slash to use as a fraction bar. If you leave your answer as a mixed number, you can leave a space in between the whole number and the fraction, but it is okay to write your answer as an improper fraction. When you're done typing in your response, you just click ahead You can either click the number or you can click next, and you again type in your responses all the way until you get to the end. When you get to your last question, you click finish. That will submit your response. I will go back and check your answers in case maybe you add an extra space somewhere. I will always make sure to check in case I can give you points back. This homework is due on Monday, so please make sure you work on that. Again, homework on Schoology due Monday. Reminders. You have an upcoming quiz on Tuesday. We will review on Monday. And you have homework from this week, so make sure you have completed the homework from this week. And that is it. Be good, quietly work on everything that you need to. Put your notes back into your binders. And when you're done with class, make sure you clean up, push in your chairs, and put your binders back. See you on Monday.